January 27th, 1974. San Francisco. The city is still vibrating from the echoes of the Zodiac killer. But a new, quieter predator is beginning to move through the fog of Ocean Beach. At 1:57 a.m., a passerby spots a shape at the water's edge. It is 49-year-old Gerald Kavanaugh. He has been stabbed multiple times, his body left in a supine position, face up to the cold Pacific stars. Kavanaugh was a Canadian immigrant, a factory worker, and a quiet man. He was the first. But at the time, police saw no patterns, just another tragedy in a city that was seeing too many. What they didn't know was that the man who killed Gerald didn't just carry a knife, he carried a sketchpad, and he was just getting started. By the summer of 1974, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The killer had a specific ritual. He would frequent the gay bars and nightclubs of the Castro and Tenderloin districts, places like the Truck Stop or Bojangles. He was described as a young, handsome black man, around 6 feet tall, with a slender build. He wouldn't lead with violence, he led with talent. He would sit at the bar, catch the eye of a victim, and begin to draw. He would show them a caricature or a cartoon he'd just made of them. It was a perfect icebreaker, flattering, intimate, and artistic. He told his targets he was an art student. Once he had gained their trust, he would suggest leaving for a more private location, usually the dark stretches of Golden Gate Park or the dunes of Ocean Beach. Once there, the artist vanished and the monster took over. The sketches were never found at the crime scenes. He took them with him. His victims weren't just targets, they were his audience, and he was the only one who got to see the final frame. June 25th, 1974. Joseph J. Stevens is found near Spreckles Lake. He was a popular female impersonator and comedian, a man full of life, silenced in the bushes of Golden Gate Park. Just 12 days later, the beach claims another. Klaus Christmann, a German national, is found at the foot of Lincoln Way. His attack was the most violent yet, 15 stab wounds and a slashed throat. The city's LGBTQ+ community began to realize they were being hunted. But in 1974, reporting these crimes came with a different kind of danger. To talk to the police often meant outing yourself at a time when that could mean losing your job, your family, or your safety. This silence was the Doodler's greatest weapon. By 1975, the bodies continued to mount. Frederick Capon, a Vietnam veteran and nurse, was found in May. Then Harold Gullberg in June. The tally was officially 5, but investigators whispered that the real number could be as high as 16. The Doodler was outpacing the Zodiac, yet the headlines were strangely quiet. In late 1975, the police finally got their break. 3 men survived. One was a well-known entertainer, another a diplomat. They had met a man who began to sketch them, but they had managed to escape before the knife could finish the job. They provided the descriptions that led to the famous police sketch we see today. Police actually zeroed in on a suspect. They questioned a young man who carried a sketchpad and frequented the same bars. He didn't deny being there, but he never confessed. The detectives were confident they had their man. There was just one problem. The survivors refused to testify. In a heartbreaking twist of the era, the diplomat and the entertainer feared the public exposure more than they wanted justice. They refused to appear in court, knowing their careers would be over the moment they took the stand. Without their testimony, the DA couldn't file charges. The suspect walked out of the station, disappeared into the San Francisco fog, and the murders simply stopped.
The Doodler was never caught. For decades, the files sat in a basement. But in recent years, the SFPD has reopened the case. They have released age-progressed sketches of what the killer might look like today, a man in his early 70s. They are using forensic genealogy, the same tech that caught the Golden State Killer, to look for a match in the DNA left on those vintage crime scenes. The Doodler used art to lure men to their deaths, and he used the prejudices of the 1970s to hide from the law. He remains one of the most prolific, unidentified serial killers in American history. A man who drew your face before he took your life.
Why did he stop? This is the question that haunts the SFPD Cold Case Unit. Most serial killers don't simply quit. They're interrupted by death, prison, or physical inability. If the suspect questioned in 1975 was indeed the Doodler, he would be in his early 70s today. FBI profilers suggest he was a man driven by deep-seated self-loathing. By targeting men in the very spaces he himself frequented, he was acting out a cycle of shame and violence. His doodles weren't just a ruse, they were a way to exert power. He captured his victims' likenesses on paper before destroying their lives in reality. To this day, psychologists study the Doodler as a rare example of a killer who used creative bait, a hunter who didn't use a gun or a trap, but a pencil and a smile.
For 40 years, the Doodler was a forgotten shadow. But in 2018, everything changed. Inspired by the capture of the Golden State Killer, San Francisco police increased the reward for information to $100,000. They released a new age-progressed sketch of a man with thinning hair and a weathered face. A man who might be your neighbor, your grandfather, or the quiet man at the end of the bar. Even more significant, they found DNA. In a lab in California, technicians are currently working on a degraded sample found at one of the 1974 crime scenes. They are using genetic genealogy to build a family tree of the killer. We are closer now than we have ever been. The silence that protected the Doodler for 5 decades is finally being broken by the loud, undeniable voice of modern science.
The Doodler's story is a tragedy of 2 parts: the lives taken by a monster and the justice denied by the era they lived in. Gerald Kavanaugh, Joseph Stevens, Klaus Christmann, Frederick Capon, and Harold Goldberg. These weren't just names in a police file. They were pioneers, veterans, and friends who were forced to live and die in the shadows. As we look at the sketch of the artist of death, we are reminded that the past is never truly buried. Somewhere, perhaps still in the Bay Area, an old man holds a secret he has kept for 50 years. But the clock is ticking, because while the Doodler may have stopped drawing, the world has not stopped looking for him.